Good Friday again. I skipped a couple days making videos because there were too many in my head. So, trying to stay on topic, I suppose. But politics and faith just keep coming back into this. So, talked about artificial intelligence software. So what this intelligence does is takes discrete inputs and makes a decision. It can be one or two or three. You can get into what I consider simple systems like SCADA, which are mostly monitoring systems more than controls. But they've grown, so now they're much more sophisticated and mature than they were. But that would be a pipeline safety conversation, and my experience with non-destructive and destructive test systems in oil field work. But what was I talking about here? So I've got two on my mind. One is on detector technologies, and the other one is this artificial intelligence thing. So what went wrong in decision making? Okay, there's two examples here. And one of them is nuclear related and one of them is aviation related. So the first challenge to all these nuclear plants in their decision making is a high pressure condenser that's on the reactor. It's inside the primary containment system for reactor coolant water. So right outside the reactor pressure vessel is this surge condenser, and what it's meant to do is handle surges in pressure levels, and what it's measuring is the level of steam pressure. Now, as a measurement professional, this is one of the hardest measurements to do and to keep and to maintain for a lot of reasons inside the reactor area. So that device typically is some type of radiation source using base reflectivity of steam in order to estimate how much pressure or how much steam, what the level of steam is in a chamber. So that lack of response or lack of ability to respond, and the operators not knowing that the machine was telling the truth or lying, had to make decisions based upon good training and education. So that if you go back to those devices on every one of the reactors we've talked about, the uncertainty in those readings and the inability of the full process to react, right? The range of response that the system can do, the stochastic ability of the sum of the parts to perform. So that's a nuclear reactor instrument measurement fail. That means the control system has a single point of failure. So a lot is done to alleviate that. Redundant systems, parallel systems, maintenance checks, calibration. So that is one device that was a factor, a huge factor in the nuclear. Boy, did I shave bad. It doesn't look good. So that was a huge factor in these accidents and why they couldn't be brought back under control. The range of operation had been exceeded for the full system, but because of that device's uncertainties. So that's artificial intelligence looking at something with questionable values, and what do you do about that? How do you make sure it's good? Signal to noise ratio type of discrimination across devices. So debounce circuits, things like that. So the second example is called a pitot tube. It's a sensor on the side of an aircraft that has to do with how fast the plane's going and a whole bunch of instrumentation. That is a high failure device. It is a device with problems. It is the device that the control system made decisions off of that made some airplanes crash we've heard about. The software that made the decisions was faulty. period. This is a challenge in software. This is like the history of Bill Gates and Microsoft software. I mentioned that in the other video. That the software, because of its size and complexity and interactions and having to interface with older, blah, blah, a long story, another video, that single point of failure that artificial intelligence was making decisions on was faulty. It had a problem, and the control algorithms inside that had a problem. So that problem is institutional, it's systemic, it's managed and monitored, it's inside of, if you are in what is an ISO certified type of environment, a CMM, a PMBOK, a large engineering organization, you get what I'm talking about. So there's two physical devices that we've heard a little bit about in the news across the centuries, actually. This is not something new to aviation people. Go look up what a pitot tube is. It's an air sensor on the side of a plane, and it is just an air tube. It's measuring a differential pressure. Very sophisticated, but a bug can mess with it. So that's artificial intelligence second level, and how some of the software comes together over years and decades. And when that old knowledge dies off somewhere, if that antique system buried inside of the new systems, things can go wrong. When people are buying corporate jets instead of investing in people, that's a problem. That was enough to make me fucking quit. You know, that was in your face. Buy 9 corporate jets and screw with bonuses and promises and intents and retirements, and that's big IT. Well, mainframes never went away.